we're glad that you're here. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing exceptionally well. I'm doing exceptionally well. It's an amazing time we're living in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I am so glad. I want to thank you for coming back and joining us. I know it's been a little bit over a year, and we just had such a great time with you. You dropped a lot of good information as usual. And when I was doing the promo for the show this week, people were really excited. I mean, people that normally don't really keep up on week to week what we're doing. They're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, he's coming on. So I want to thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule for joining us. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. I know we talked briefly, and I wanted to leave it open to discuss whatever you wanted to discuss. Of course, I always check what you are doing on a periodic basis, and it really looks like that you have a lot of classes going on with university, and as well as you have a wealth of information on secretenergy.com. So I'll turn the floor over to you, and we'll take it from there.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say thanks for definitely having me back on the show. It's always a pleasure to come on, and we had a really amazing time last time. So I was just like, man, I got to get back in there and do some things. And yeah, I was actually listening earlier, and it would really be good to just go with this. I mean, there's obviously there's some stuff that I'm working with now. You know, it's just as far as obviously I'm going to continue to progress. And then there's, what's going on in the reality on the normal. And, there's always insights for that. And then there's that custom message, which is really catered to the night and to those that are listening. So we just dive through all of those worlds and see, what we can come up with. And, and first and foremost, another thing that I would like to say is, it's great if it's a dialogue, because if you hear some of this stuff and it's really clicking with what you're with what you know, and you want to know a little bit more about that, then it's really easy to get that information to you. As you know, that there's really nothing that I can't demystify. So this is always a good time for us, because we get a chance to pull out our notes, if you may, of things that we've still had in question, and then we get a chance to ask those questions. So I would also, if possible, want to leave some time open for those who want to call in and ask some things, and just so that they have that opportunity, because I'm really not doing that many shows these days, because I've been busy on a few inventions. And so, yeah, that's taking up a lot of my time. So it's really good to actually get into these forums and assist the people. And I guess I could start off with, I remember the brother's name, was it Wade? Or I remember the brother's name that you always used to, it's kind of like your co-host over there. I heard him earlier.
Brother Wendell.
Yeah, Wendell, that's what it is. Okay, yeah. I was listening to him. He always got something he's up to, and I wanted to, see and assist him with his, current research of, watching this whole unearthing of these much more larger life human beings. And it's really something that we have to understand, as far as that nothing that's here does not have an order or a process that is gone through to come into a creation. In fact, that's actually the whole purpose of creation, is to have some kind of like structure of how you say it started and then how it's to continue. But on the other side of this, there's none of that. There's no numbers. There's no, any kind of separations or divisions or languages. There's none of that. So with this organized reality, this is supposedly the realm that was built by God. And so some people already set out not too long ago to really understand, how did God, quote unquote, build this world? And a lot was really, really come up with. And of course, those annuals of knowledge were closed. But just to understand the primordial times, which is really rife in the occultism, if you have the opportunity to read through some of that stuff. But what it talks about is that there was basically a covenant between rather large life forms that they call macrobes, and the template of these life forms could very well be close to human beings. And this is because it gets to a point where our apex human being, basically the consciousness that we're in now currently, it actually is what we would call a template of a being that is, I would say, perfected. And perfected in the sense that it has a level of mastery with it, so it can master other beings. So this first life forms, if you may, what you will see is that their structures were much more larger. And that's why in the ancient text, it talks about how they split Tiamat's body and created the earth with it. And, so they give a lot of hints that the possible foundation to what we're standing on is in fact a life form. Now, when you do look into any kind of levels of esoteric knowledge, it does reveal this. And not only that, let's say the rocks or the strata are the bones of humans. But see, that's just in this timeline, because when you're not dealing with time, you will go on to a whole nother level and find that substance would actually be alive. It would be animated. It would be thinking, and it would be able to move with its own volition. So even the planet, the surface that we're standing on now, which some people call Mother Earth, or we call Mother Earth, is actually alive, because you can't get anything living from something dead. So if we put some seeds in the ground and the ground was dead, then it's not going to come up. So when we put seeds in this ground, obviously, and there's different kind of seeds, there's ideas, there's fruit, there's children, there's different kinds of seeds. When we put seeds into this fertile field, it does bring life to those seeds, and they start their grow up process. And so sometimes when you want to kind of blame the catastrophe that's going on sometimes on Earth, you can just blame it on that this is the actual growing up process. And also that if you're looking in here when this is still, let's say the second trimester, like very early in the whole process, or even in the middle of the process, you're going to see some deformities. You're going to see some things that you don't perceive as actually being perfect. And of course, you're going to be witnessing those things in yourself. And so this is a part of the massive, it's not a plan. It's more like our firmware, meaning it's just what we are. There's nothing that we can do necessary to change it or take away from it, etc. It's the natural process of our growth. Now, obviously, when you get a sentient world like this, where literally you have thinking beings, we can now prolong that process for ourselves with the advent of something called time, which we have not been familiar with in our previous phase, because our previous phase doesn't exist in time. So this whole idea of time actually does create a form of scarcity. And now let me show you just what is meant by these ancient texts about these larger life forms, also sometimes called the Archon, sometimes even called the angels. But the Ark of the Covenant is basically a covenant in the sky a covenant that was to bear witness by a symbol in the sky known as the rainbow. And when you go in physics and you go in these different these arts, you'll find that actually these colors correspond to the fields of division. That this is a very divisive world, meaning it runs on duality. So there's the greens, there's the orange, there's the blacks, there's the white. There's these different colors that are not like each other, supposedly, as it's perceived in the physical realm. Now, again, before all of this, there is no separation. There is no feeling that there's something different, or that one is missing something, that one is going to die. There's none of that kind of stuff going on. So in this space where division is created, you can imagine not most, but all of the difficulties that we seem to face in the physical reality is actually because of those differences, because of that division. Now, when you look at the reality, you can also see that the reality powers itself on electricity. And when you study electricity, you actually find that the electrons and electricity are actually negative, and that they are moving under the pressure of the voltage. So what this literally means is that in the physical reality, you'll have a lot of negative electrons. This is what we would see as the feminine force of flesh. You'll have a lot of that going on. And then there'll be this chaos kind of, which is the friction or the force. They call this the pressure that actually creates energy. And that's actually in our conflicts, in our dislikes with everything that we're judging on the dimension. So this is why the book says, when you judge, ye shall be judged. Because then what happens is when you judge, you activate what is a part of the consciousness. They call it the R complex, which is a rather primal part of our consciousness. It's actually assigned to the actual reptilian side of us, since the whole human is basically a stack of multiple life forms, and one of those life forms being reptilian, who moves on one strand of DNA. So these are the primordial forms. Now, this is why there's, of course, a lot of serpent hating going on all the time. To say every serpent's evil is just as bad as saying every human is good. What I'm saying is that instead of good and bad, which is that whole binary code, we should seek to understand it. Like, go observe. Let's look at what we're talking about here. And if we take a moment to do that, we'll find that symbolically and also physically and metaphysically, etc., this serpent makes up the foundation or the primal senses of what came before the reality that we're standing on right now, right? But it's still a collected chain or a bridge. And this is why the rainbow, they call it the rainbow bridge, or it even looks like a bridge, and bridges are even shaped like rainbows. And this is all because the symbolism is always encoded within the geometry. The symbolism is always encoded within the language. The symbolism is really what is the code behind the reality itself. If you pulled this covering back and just looked at it, it would be all just geometric codes. And in that geometry, you would find the meaning. So what happened was, is, to make a rather long story, we're talking about billions of years, possibly short, is that there was an agreement for this covenant to be put together to do the thing. And that's exactly how it was mentioned even in the Bible, meaning to create a man or woman. So basically, this process involves actually taking the life forms that are already naturally developing on the dimensions and actually blending them with the top gene, which is basically the gene of reason, as they call it. And this is also even known as the reptilian's brain. So in the ancient text, it said, we gave them our minds. Now, of course, this mind, which is also a cognate of mind, like the deep mines that you're digging in. This mind or mind can be tricky, because if you get in your mind and then you start believing that you're this character in the mirror, and you start going deeper into these experiences that are still actually a part of an illusion, in the sense that it's made out of light. So we're not illusion that it's not real. It's an illusion that it's made out of light. So this illusion that we begin to live in creates all of these divisions, which become like walls in the maze of our mind. So then this can go on for almost infinitely, because what happens when a person goes through the process of what they perceive as death, they actually then have an opportunity at that point to dive back in on another part of their whole memory-based timeline. So most of the time, people have these things that they regret, or they have these things that they want to do over again, or they forget, or they long to be a part of again. So in this reflection, which is literally what it is, in this reflection, the person will literally dive back into that space in their whole incarnations, and then start living from there. Very similar to how when you go to sleep, sometimes you can have dreams that you're fully convinced that this dream is real until you wake up. So this process has actually been going on. There is no actual time to measure it, how long the process of incarnations have been going on. But what's been very difficult for many of these mystics and also the spiritual centers of the world and religious centers is to actually determine where we are actually supposed to be, and how to not just theorize that, but prove that based on a blueprint. So let me give you an example. For instance, with the sun. Now, if you notice that what we're talking about is, we're talking about a solar body that is actually spiraling through what they're calling space at billions of miles an hour. Who knows? So if you make that centralized to you, what this would mean is that you have this ability to spiral through the whatever this is they're calling space, which is basically black matter or Ma'at. And every single point that you come in contact with, you experience the height of experience. So it just basically comes across as pure energy. It doesn't come across as, okay, this is the time I sat with my child on the swing. This is not the time that I won the lottery. It's not going to come across as that, because that's all dense. That's dense stuff. But what actually happens is in that process or in that experience, when you're at the point, That's why they say, hey, you on point? You know, are you focused? All these words mean the same thing. It means, are you basically on the tip of the sun as yourself being the sun, going through your manifestations? Remember, the sun is neither male nor female. That's a trick in the language. It's a dynamo. So it has a positive, a negative, and a neutral. So that means that the human being must achieve a positive, negative, and neutral before they can even get to this, what we would call our higher selves, our higher state. But it doesn't mean, again, that because we're not there, that it does not exist. It does not need us to feel like we exist for it to exist. Meaning, so we don't need to feel like we exist to exist. We just are. You notice how some people try to actually confirm their existence with their feelings? This is very deep. This is much more deeper than that. This is something that can't actually be undone and moved around and thought about. So that's also our power then, because we can become disempowered when we start to take on this rudimentary knowledge, which they call foolishness to God. But it was basically the serpent's knowledge. And the serpent's knowledge was the knowledge about everything under the sun, everything in the world. This includes the physics. This includes what they call the higher levels of the knowledge here. All of that was serpent knowledge because there's a symbolics to the serpent, as they call serpent. Now, the pent in the back, it means a pentagram. And now the pentagram actually becomes the symbol in Wicca but much more older languages of some kind of wisdom that was on earth. Now, the symbol then turns itself into an apple, because when you cut an apple in half, it actually has a pentagram in the center. Go check it out. So what the bitten apple is, because the whole part in Genesis is all encrypted, the bitten apple is actually biting into the knowledge of the serpent. Notice how the serpent then brings the knowledge. But the serpent's always been also a cognate of wisdom, a cognate of books, a cognate of trees, a cognate of words also. And then also this fervorance to teach the human beings, the mammals, language, because the serpent doesn't actually have a voice box, even as you see them right now. But humans have this voice box. And because of our voice box, we're capable of an evocation, meaning saying things that create powerful things, because we have the ability to push sound. So this is kind of like this love-hate relationship that also goes on between the old schoolers, which they would call, let's say, the ancient ones, who they say are dead but dreaming. Now, the reason why they're saying it's like that is just like Wendell is saying about how these giants, what they are is they're so dense, meaning that their frequencies now are so low that they actually appear like stone. In the event you happen to open up your third eye in front of many of these little fragments and stones, you will not only see many of these primordial forms, you will also see some of the larger ones that are still alive, like what Earth actually consists of. So in the ancient text, what it mentions is that they would call them the fixed stars, and they were also cognates of the trees. Now, what this means is that the trees, these huge trees, were actually the pillars, if you may, or the actual, let's say, origin point of the human beings coming to the planet. And this is because these trees, if you notice that even with ayahuasca and these kind of elements, they contain vast amounts of data within, encrusted within their bark, and in their chlorophyll, the photosynthesis, in their roots, etc. So this is a living life form that actually has a connection to us. And there's actually an article on the Secret Energy site of somebody in Romania or one of those countries going through not just a theory, but basically proving that many of the larger mountain ranges, if you take a look at them, actually look like stumps of trees. And then it kind of begged to question, did someone cut these trees down? Now, if you look also in these ancient texts, it talks about, especially in the Norse tradition, of their tree being cut down, right? And like there's being like that every single group here on Earth, let's say the races, which are the 7 colors, and then the two other colors, black and white. So these 9 colors, let's say, that each of them had as their pillar a specific tree. And if you happen to cut someone's tree down, they felt like they were disconnected from their mother or disconnected from their source, as if someone had cut their umbilical cord. Now, what it does prove in these ancient texts, and again, ancient texts are ways that we can try to use English to interpret what's happening on an entirely different level. True, as above, so below, but in the as above sense, this doesn't play out like big giant rock trees. Somebody comes and cuts the arm down, which is what it was called. Then the bloodline of the emir no longer has consciousness and ravages the earth. So you could then take this to the story and say, okay, well, if you look at the bloodline of the emir and where they came from, are those people ravaging the earth now because they're disconnected from their motherland? And then if you go to even a place like Russia and you see how even the women are treated, then you may say, well, do these people have some kind of disconnection between themselves and their mother? So this is like the whole process, right? So what happens with Earth, though, because this is what we have to get beyond, or we get an opportunity to, is getting out of Wonderland, because truly what you're also dealing with, if you understood the profile of the Archons, is that they were actually sorcerers. They were pulling power from the source, which was light. And then they became, which is, there was the Anunnaki, but the current term is Lucifers, where there was more than one. One who can use light and bend light in shape and form and fashion with light in order to create illusions. So what this does then is like why they hide most of the initiation process within the movie Alice in Wonderland, where the first process is Alice dives into the looking glass. And this, of course, comes out to us on the planet as when we look at this mirror and we start imagining that we're the being that's inside that mirror. That's the first part of getting into Wonderland. Because from that point on, you're going to wonder who you are. And you're going to know in a sense that you're something else, but you're going to seek everywhere else but inside, because it first starts right there in the mirror. And this is what the Toltec knowledge teaches about, that this mirror actually that's in your bathroom, it pulls in, versus the obsidian mirrors that the ancients used to use, it pushes out. And it attracts or repels. Okay, so the one, I have to correct that. I need to think about that. But let me just say it like this: one attracts and the other one repels. And the difference in the one and the other is one is basically casting a projection on you, saying this is what you are, while the other one is saying, what are you? And the deeper you can go inside of yourself, and that's the obsidian mirror, the closer you can get to the realization of who you truly are. So until then, Alice looks in this mirror every single morning. Now, let me also tell you why the serpent also is used as a symbolism in alchemy, because the skin of the human body is known to be the cognate of the serpent, because the skin constantly sheds on the serpent. And so too, the attitudes and the auras of people constantly change. In addition to that, the skin is actually what's causing the biggest race problem, right? Like, because that's, after all, if I came in with no skin on, you wouldn't even know who I was, let alone even if I was your friend, let alone try to distinguish whether I was Chinese, black, or whatever. So the reason why that's always known to be the greatest secret is because the skin is an organ. The organs are the archons, and the skin has sheathed all of them, meaning that the heart, the lung, all these other forms or organs, vibrations that are inside of us are all summed up with this outside. So let me explain how that works. People, when they look in the mirror, they're more concerned about their appearance than they are about their liver. And they are about their spleen and these different things. They will go and do murder to the spleen. But when it comes time to fix the face, they're always there in the mirror fixing it. Why? Because the outside surface of the skin is actually known as the rainbow serpent. Okay. And then that rainbow is shimmering, meaning that it changes colors. This is how the ancients put it. And then based on that, then the person gathers their attitude, even people get into all of this stuff that you're seeing right now is all because of this skin. And thus it became a cognate of the illusion. You see what I mean? And the illusion is worked by light. And if you see human beings, because we think that we don't even shine, but we shine. We don't actually need an external light. That was known as Falsiphorus, or the false one, or Lucifer. We will be then blinded by that external light. That's why most religions now are external solar god religions, right? And they're always sun God, young God in his youth and blah, 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 blah. And they sell that because that's the blinding by the light of the truth. The truth is first of all, it's not a man and it's not a woman. What we're talking about is what's behind the eyes of a man and a woman. We're talking about the essence of even, they got a female woman, but they also got a female lion. They got a female frog. So what is female? It's not human as we know it. It's actually a force. So this is, some of the stuff. This is kind of old stuff. Like where I'm at right now is I've seen now that there's another play that was made, and this all goes as supplemental programming when you're younger all the way to the age you are right now. And that's because nature's complexity, because we don't really study nature. Like when we say we, first of all, that would mean a large amount of people. Like there's people who study biology and things like that, but that is nowhere near the majority. So what I'm talking about is that when we study nature, and let me just take a moment, just a quick moment here, just to take a break out. I know somebody may have something to say. Let me just take a moment for a minute. Because we can keep going. Let me just take a quick drink real quick.
I found it interesting about the whole thing with chopping down the tree. And to bring it into more present times, like how they say George Washington chopped down the cherry tree.
That's exactly what I thought of.
Well, and it also says that they will be cut off. And that's like when there's deeper books. I'm just only bringing in what I've read and what I've understood as wisdom. But there was one book that I read. I'm not going to try to ignite a race war on this show tonight, so I'll leave the colors for everyone else to guess. But they said basically, bring me the bones of their fathers. And then the response was, but you cannot, because we made the dogs eat them. The dogs ate their bones. So what this is saying basically is that some people even had the unfortunate history of having their ancestors' bones eaten by dogs in order for them to not actually feel the connection of that vibrational wavelength. Okay, so now let's talk about this vibrational wavelength then. So what happened? That's where we were going. So what happens is in nature. See because we don't study nature. Nature is baffling us right now, right? So we see it and we're like, man, whatever this is made out of. It's just naturally awe-inspiring. Okay. So because of that, though, we immediately go into this assumption that nature is perfect, that nature is the highest level of knowledge, and we go on and on and on. This actually goes without us really thinking about it. It's subconscious. But actually what was discovered, whether a person was to believe it or not, is that when you get deep into like when you could just see under your microscope, and you start looking deep into many organisms, you actually see flaws in the pattern. And what they've basically discovered is these flaws are creating what is called a decay, a faster decay cycle. And what this means is that obviously every flower that you see does eventually get dead, right? Or wilt, right? And some trees live longer than others. Some animals live longer than others. Some humans even live a little bit longer than others, right? So what controls this sliding scale of decay? It's actually the pattern that's deep within the material of the being. So it turns out that there's these patterns that we all have that have been corrupted in many ways, that the pattern is not as perfect as it used to be. So what happens is this is what causes this idea that we're actually aging. Now, of course, there's a slew of things, mainly imagining we're something that we're not, that actually makes this pattern start coming out of its perfected form. But you can see how the entire process of being in the world in the stage that it's in right now is almost productive for a person to become disconnected from themselves. So what this pattern really does, for me to demystify it, is to understand this bandwidth. Basically, this pattern is an antenna. So how bandwidth works is that if you call your mother and she's got bad internet, it doesn't matter how good your internet is, it's still going to cut the line off. You both must have good enough internet to have a conversation. And the better internet you have, you can either start shooting videos and everything down it, right? So the same thing is with the connection between us and what we're calling our oversoul, which is the complete lineage and line of who we are. The bandwidth on that side is always going to be very high, but to us, it's now become very low because not only our pattern is distorted, we're disillusioned with who we truly are. And so in the event that we begin to perfect our own pattern by tapping back into the all-knowing, not believing, but the all-knowing, then one starts opening the bandwidth back up to their self. And this is how I came to not only know, but also experience this wisdom that I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about this from the realm of belief. I know this because I have the experiences and I keep having the experiences. I'm even able to cause experiences and phenomena on cue because I see how, you also kind of wrote me and say, hey, man, look like you didn't go out on this TV show. So we're watching a Doppelganger, which is basically a three-dimensional projection and emission. I'm not saying he's not moving on his own volition, meaning that he's not moving on his own prime. But what I'm saying is it's a prototype. Meaning that there's a prototype, if you notice, of certain human beings, almost all of them. You can even get one look like your grandma. You can get one that looks like. So there's an actual template to the mixtures of the human beings. But because you still do have a rather rich palette to mix from, this is why still you can get billions of humans and still not see how some of them actually look alike. But every now and then you bump into an Indian version of a Mexican. Now, the thing is also is to realize that this connection between the pentagram is also the connection between phi. And what phi is basically random numbers that continue to go on infinitely. So instead of talking about mathematics, all a person needs to understand is that this thing can continuously spit out these numbers. And if these numbers, let's say, were assigned to the uniqueness or the appearance of uniqueness that comes from each being, you will always find small variations within each being. And as long as you're doing a lot of judging, you're going to see a huge difference. But as soon as you don't do much judging, you start throttling that energy back and also putting that energy into yourself when you're realizing that all is self, then you start seeing this unifying field that actually becomes your instructor, because it then starts the process that must go on before one can depart from a binary world into trinary, is they must unify their own field. Now, the unification of the field is in this realm impossible because this is a dualistic world. So this means that once you do it, you actually don't live in this world as people call living. Now, let me explain this. So there's this place that's actually where the supreme always is, and it's in between the breath. It's actually called present. It doesn't exist in the past. It doesn't exist in the future. It's right in the moment, because all in that moment, there's an infinite amount of energy. So this is where it always stays. And things that are behind us, like the past, memories, all that appears like slow motion if we ever take the time to look at it. And then as far as what's beyond, we're experiencing that in the moment. So there's nothing to look forward to. So this is the supreme state of the consciousness in which we can reach, and it can actually be done from physical body on up. Well, one of the major keys, again, to just simplify this for people is, and not people, but these beautiful beings that are on the planet. Simplify it. It's because we need to see only our focus, which is sovereignty. When you find yourself doing something without a purpose like sovereignty, it's going to feel like time is wearing on you. Many things are going to feel pointless, et cetera, et cetera. You must keep sovereignty at your point, because if you can achieve, and you can, even small portions of sovereignty, making your way towards that, as below, so above, you will cause that phenomenon to also take place in what they call the heavens. Now, in the heavens, that place is basically that's why they have different heavens all the way up to the seventh heaven, right? Because this is the same thing as the seven colors on the rainbow, where the astral plane is also laid out, because this space between when a human goes from a dense body, human being, then they die, they go into another space for a while until they take on the vessel again, or another vessel again. So in that space of what goes on between that part, that's what's called the astral plane. Now, these astral planes are equally divided. Now, because anything that you got to see a differentiation between something, this is why someone says, oh, well, I went there and it was this color and there was this kind of beings going on there. And then on the eighth heaven, I got there. And even the Bible lays it out. The Chiath HaKodesh, the creatures around the throne, the Beni Elohim, it shows you the seraphim, the cherubim. It shows you these layers that they have actually set up in the astral plane beyond the non-physical that still consist of this kind of division. Now, this is called Metatronics. Okay, Metatronics, which is what is really being practiced the most by these what they call them Orthodox Jews, because they worship math. Okay, really, math is Ma'at. Okay, but they're worshiping the synthetic, what they call the black artificial goo. They're worshiping the synthetic version of Ma'at through numbers. Okay, now numbers obviously are the only thing precise. That's why they say God is numbers. And obviously the ancient cultures had a strong fix on numbers. So this language, which is the ancient Hebrew, because the letters are numbers, as the modern Hebrew is now, the entire language is numbers. Now, the whole thing about this is that there's the gift within it, and then there's the curse. Now, the curse is what they are suffering from. I'm not saying generalizing, but I'm saying that whole focus on banking and finance and God as a number and money and more numbers, higher numbers, 1 billion, 2 billion. Your age is older. You have more degrees, higher temperature. So all these different let's play the numbers game is all a product of the curse of what was taken out of that pyramid. Okay, now when they say, okay, they took something from the pyramid or they just spoiled the Nesut Biti, which they're calling pharaohs, is that they took the numbers. They took the mathematical encodings, not just the gold that was there, but the actual architecture of what was actually taken. Because when you have the architecture, phi is encoded within the pyramid. So now you know how God, quote unquote, built the world. And now this is like in a cartoon movie when they say, don't let the power fall into the hands of evil. What they're saying is basically when the abomination that causes desolation, this is when the creature walks into the holies of holies. Now, let me tell you, this is not just a specific race. This is happening also microcosmically with each person walking into the sacred parts of their own consciousness or their own physicality even, and then misusing it. Okay, so the abomination that causes desolation is basically what starts kicking the clock in that whole degradation cycle. And then now we're showing it. It's disconnection. Numbers create disconnection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even words create disconnection. That's a sword, not a cat. This is a airplane, not a boat. So all of those words, they cut into the reality like swords, bringing out to you what it is that you evoked. And all of this begins to happen so fast, it seems to almost get out of control if you're moving slow. And this is the whole process of being in dense worlds. When you get off of the tip of the sun, where you're forever young, there is no possession. Nothing can hold you. You're vibrating so high, nothing can cling to you. Experiencing it all in the moment as pure energy. The only thing that's actually behind you, which they call stardust. That's why somebody say, eat my dust, and they peel off on you. That dust is actually the planets. It's all of the memories. It's everything that you've experienced now slowed down. So this is why in the world, the reincarnation process is basically a person reflects, looks back on time. This is where I would rather be. And because they're in a body that can move through time, let's prove real quick that the astral body, if you want to call it that, the dream body is capable of moving through time. This is why you can have a 15-minute, you just went to sleep on the couch real quick, and that seemed like 4 or 5 hours. You can go and travel somewhere across the world right in just a moment, because that body specifically, it doesn't obey the laws of time. So when you're in that body and you've now come out, and because the physical body has convinced itself it's going to die because it's artificial. And let me explain to you why the bodies are artificial, because you know what we do on the show, we go deep. So the body basically is what's known as an egregor. It's basically when there's a ritual done around something and the belief in it becomes so strong that it actually starts to solidify itself. Now, this is why, of course, when these people that are practicing exoteric knowledge, not esoteric, they try to draw the star on the ground and go marching around that. And you see, knowledge in the hand of fools. What it's referring to is that the physical body is actually the pentagram itself. It's phi. And the ritual is keeping us in a continuous cycle with ourselves. Now, notice the word psycho, crazy, and cycle, to go in circles, because eventually that is actually what they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if you come back to the world over and over and over again, thinking that you're going to hit unity, hit happiness or hit any of that, that's kind of insane. But of course, the world promotes this kind of insanity. Now, I'm not saying go check out. Everyone has their orbit. The only thing actually guaranteed here is that you'll leave. The real test is, if you may, because you're in a university or a universe, right? A universe. Every time, the only purpose is every time you say that you accomplish something. Okay, well, here's the test. So if you say, okay, well, now I know what happens after death, so I'm a professional reincarnator. Okay, well, here's the test. Let's see if you cling. And this is why also when a person gets on certain substances that will take you up through a couple levels of your own frequency, the person wants to get back to earth fast. They're like, yo, this is too much energy. Now, the interesting thing is that the first thing that is proven is that there is no lack of energy. And that's a part of the falsehood in this realm, is that there's a lack in energy based on time, based on oil, based on money, because it's a slippery slope. It just starts all rolling into each other after that. So, but on the true level of things, actually, the real issue is being able to handle that amount of energy and still remain present, what they call conscious, right? And what I found is that's actually why you see so many human beings on the planet right now, is because they are actually one. And it takes all of these beings in order to be able to manage, like a spaceship, all of the energy that's moving through Earth. And in the event that we start getting off balance and offline, then we already start triggering certain fail-safes within ourselves, like alarm clocks, literally like, wake up. You need to wake up. It's like a Freddy Krueger movie here now. Like your whole pod has been on autopilot for too long. You've coasted into hostile space. Wake up out the dream and grab the helm of the ship. Now let's talk about the ship really briefly. So this is how it was. Like when you're coasting through the galactic ocean, I'll take a break here in just a moment. When you're coasting through the galactic ocean, this is how it works. All cognates of the word of a navigator or the sailor have to do with the first angel or androgynon that visited the planet that kicked a part of this process off, which they call Semyaz. Okay. Now, Semyaz is known as the sailor, and is often depicted as an angel of a reptilian-looking angel. That's the pictures. So generally, if you see in the sky right now, everything is actually in this motion, right? And it's few things are out of that motion. The only things that are out of that motion are what's called falling stars, right? Meteors, those kind of things. Everything else is always go around this whole motion and then come back around in one anu or one cycle. So the reason this is the same reason why, if you are a real navigator, when you get on the ocean, you never have to open your sails. You never have to engage your oars. All you have to do is open your sails, because you already know when the wind is coming and where it's going. So you're a sailor. So you know, okay, I'm going to open it up on August 15th of 2022. I open up the sail from this port right here, and there's a wind that will take me around the entire world without me ever engaging my oar and without the sea ever being rough. Okay, that's a real sailor, knows how to do that. So the purpose of this is why in the book it says there's a time and place for everything. Because as you're going through these constellations, which are also the zodiac, or the different kind of energies that you will encounter, then each of these energies can be used for something. So sometimes it's time to take a break and to relax and have fun. Sometimes it's time to work real hard and conceive ideas. Sometimes it's time to go spend time with the family. So there's a time and a place for everything. So the navigator knows that. So the navigator's never in a rush to try to get somewhere, feeling like they're late, feeling like they ain't going to make it, feeling like they're going to. None of that happens, because they're cool about it and they're just sailing on the galactic ocean or cosmos, and then they're going through the experiences as they come. That's what the ancestors was trying to teach us with all this Metu Neter and all of these different works. And that's what they actually try to exclaim until the exoteric people come and try to make the external version of it. And the truth is, the reason why there was always a fervence to teach someone this, there was never like, oh, maybe you can learn it. We got to see if you're worthy. No, it was to let you discover your uniqueness. Because when you discovered your uniqueness, now we were going to have a piece that we were missing. Because the entire realm that we're living in is basically like an explosion. It's actually the remains of what went on after a conflict. Now, you can see that conflict on a lower level, or you can say there was an internal conflict where you started going to war with yourself and then you exploded. And now you're trying to gather all your pieces back together. But because of this disconnection, these pieces, just like the electrons in a battery, don't want to be put back together. They're trying to get away from each other. And this is also in magnetics, why the two poles that are alike are trying to push away from each other. So you see, this whole thing is really encoded. It's like looking at some kind of mystical, magical box. And what we are doing now and have done is we are making our way out of that box. Instead of us being conscribed to the mind, where we have to dig the gold of the archons, meaning that we have to bring our bright ideas and forms from our deeper minds and consciousness. This is our past, our memories. You know how far back a person's data bank can really go if they had access to themselves? But even the deep thinkers, who are the deep miners, right? Those people bring these energies, or they bring these essences out into the environment. And then these forms that are here in the environment, companies, the big pharmas, the big chemas, the eidolons, they then take those ideas and use those ideas. So do you see that that's this whole technique of robbing a being of their soul or their light? Because soul, of course, is Latin for the sun. So taking a person's bright ideas or their gold, because they've mined that in their minds of their own memories when they've gotten to a place where they can think deep enough. And then they birth that, just like a child, even the children, out into this dimension that actually begins to manipulate those forms. And this is because there has been an agreement. Okay, that's why they call it the covenant of the serpent, which is by salt. Now, salt is a geometric shape of a cube, is a cognate of the Kaaba, is a cognate of the hexagonal field spinning around the bottom of Saturn. So this covenant basically is like this. Anytime that there's a war, because remember I told you there was a war that went on within, that then manifested itself outside. Now, when someone wins that war, obviously the divisor won. If the divisor didn't win, we would still be together, right? So if the divisor won, what was the treaty? Like, what did it write and say that was not going to be allowed by the humans that were living on the planet? That they could not know about their powers. It's the same thing as with a country that you, like Germany. Germany has a treaty with America, whether you know it or not, that says that they can't actually have certain weapons. And actually, the citizens of Germany don't actually belong to Germany. And they even can read that on their own paperwork because of the treaty that was signed after the war. So what I'm saying here is that tighten up because what's going on is right in front of you and very clear. And it's only because we have this constant thing broadcasting, talking about sleep, like the movie They Live. Oftentimes, like a Freddy Krueger movie, we have a hard time. It's just like a dream. And I explain it like this. Sometimes you can have this dream and it'll be so riveting and life-changing. When you wake up, you're like, man, I'm so glad to just be out of that dream. And you will swear that you will remember this dream and even act accordingly, appreciating life after that. 2 weeks later, you're back to the same thing again. This is something that we can watch personally as being a product of when you're in a dense environment, just all around you. A lot of times there's no high vibratory frequencies. And this is why a big part of our inventions is to put the vibratory frequencies not only in the environment, but in the person's body through water. Because then when their actual primary fuel and astringent, which is what the body is using to rinse most of the stuff, is the water, is made in that perfect pattern, which is called a metamaterial, made in that perfect pattern that conducts their bandwidth properly. Now we're talking. So you can see why then that if we're creators, but we're constantly encouraged to not create, but to work for someone or something else, then this is where you don't get these kind of inventions. You don't even get people knowing how to even make a microwave or what even a diode is, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is what we're changing.
Got you. So I know you got to get you some water in. So
I got my water right here.
I have. Okay. So based on what you're saying, it sounds to me that are some of us at the point that, number one, we don't want to reincarnate back into density. And then number two, you know, isn't it still all about, like you were saying, us going within, doing the necessary work to learn how to be in the now? So meaning you're not focusing on the past, you're not focusing on the future, you're focusing on the now and being that creator. And once you do that internally, you're able to manifest or create and shoot it out to the external, which would contribute to changing or raising the frequency. Or am I like totally off base?
No, that's exactly it. And it's also because remember that with these terms binary and trinary, duality, triplicity, what they're referring to is a binary person, let's say, only really has access to two aspects of themselves in balance or in some kind of balance or awareness. So this is for the average person, their good and bad side, or what they call their awake and their sleep state. In trinary, this is why it creates many paradoxes, because meaning people can't explain some of the things that can be accomplished in trinary because you're actually in both fields at the same time.
That's interesting.
So this is not about moving away from the reality, like that's a given anyway with the rise of vibrational frequency. The goal is actually to realize, first of all, that this is going backwards. You've seen all this before, and that's why you have deja vu.
Right.
Now what you need to do is to realize that and then actually reverse the aura, reverse the direction in which your consciousness is going in, because it's the direction of death. The reason for this is because most of the magic that's practiced here that manipulates current or currency is necromancy, which is towards the direction of the idea of death. Now, what is necromancy? Dead presidents on a dollar, on a talisman, which is not a dollar. It's not just a dollar, it's a talisman. That word doll in dollar means a doll. Okay, so this is a doll with a dead person on it. And then there's some inscriptions, which is basically their signature, the two-dimensional signature of a master mason. So basically, what are you dealing with here? You're dealing with basically a mojo doll right here. And now this is called this is in their book called The Great Work, because it's the ability to turn dirt into gold, to take something that basically has no value at all and get the most precious thing from a person. And doesn't it do that? So this.
I'll say bull S into gold, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, or lead. Lead was the real term, lead into gold. And so it's very clear to us then. And so what happens is that if we know that the duality is causing this problem, we can do simple exercises like take a recorder around, a small recorder, put it in your pocket or whatever, and then transcribe at the end of the day everything that was said. Hopefully you can just forget that the recorder is even there. And then look at in that recording how many times you used words that were not sure themselves, such as belief, maybe. And then when you calculate that against words that are sure of themselves, then you can govern the percentage of how close you are or far away you are from your true self. Because you must know, like you cannot play around in this field not knowing, because there's this other things that are called egregors. And egregors are known as artificial life forms because they weren't born in a womb, not artificial because they're not real and they can't move on their own volition. Notice these terms in science don't mean the same interpretations that we're given in just standard English. Even the term organic, crystals aren't organic in chemistry, but if you talk to somebody that's like namaste and you tell them the crystal is inorganic, they're like, no, it's inorganic. No, this ain't from Monsanto. They get confused because they're using terms that they don't actually even know the actual real meanings to. So you could differentiate one thing from another. So this term artificial just means it wasn't born in a womb. And so what an eidolon is we have this power, of course, they talk about it a lot now, that when we start focusing our intention on something, it begins to manifest. So the ancients, which were very large, actually were doing that collectively in order to create these planes like we're living on now, that they would go into these levels of meditation to project. create projections, visions, okay, that you can actually animate or live in, just like we create a projection from our mind called a dream, and then we dive in with our astral and start living in the dream. So it's the same process, except they knew what they were doing. And in this process, when rituals are done, this means the more beings that you have there doing this, the stronger it is what you're creating. And that's why I said they formed a covenant amongst each other also in the beginning to create something. And so what happened is in this process, you get the energies that are actually joined together. And then there is a manifestation. So let me make this simple for everyone to understand. When these rituals take place, like Christianity, what began Christianity, there's specific rules to these rituals, because the ones who create the formulas create them from the stars. Because remember, in the stars, it's a time and a place for everything. So certain energies are going to move through at a certain time. And then when you consecrate certain things around those times, it's like you're literally just like you're using a rotary phone. You're dialing in literally what you're creating. And so they would get into these massive rituals and create these eidolons, because the eidolons can roam about the astral plane. They don't have the same limitations of the physical body. So it became almost like a familiar or ran for a magician or a sorcerer or a magus or a goddess or whatever you want to give them the name of. It became a working being that could go through the astral plane that actually belonged to them. So what happens is that in this process, you'll find that this eidolon is actually created. Now, most eidolons from the old times do not bear at all a resemblance of what they initially started as. And this is because as time goes on, because we're still talking about physical finite worlds, as time goes on, the people who originally, or the beings who originally created many of these initial rituals, will try to pass those rituals on to the adherents, right? Like the neophytes or the initiates. So this is like the same thing with Earth. There were rituals that went on with Earth that the ancestors actually attempted to pass on to what would be us now, but the ball dropped, literally. So that's why there's no rites of passage or anything. But through this process, what the rituals are teaching you is how to keep control of the eidolon by staying in control of the original principles of how it was created. And when there's a deviation in the ritual, when somebody forgets the part or somebody doesn't even do it, the eidolon actually starts moving, or the egregor actually starts moving on its own volition, meaning that it actually starts to think and move on its own. And then after a while, it can't be controlled. And this is actually a state that pretty much every religion is in right now, that they cannot actually be controlled by the people who are saying that they're on the top of the religion. So because the reason why this is important is because that's religions, but we create eidolons ourselves. So if you have this idea, and this is how tricky it gets, if you have this idea of who you think you are that you've been carrying around for the last 30, 40, 50 years, when it's time to actually go into who you truly are, because all of that is really artificial, that's just not who you are, you're something much more greater, this thing does not want to die. So they even have books about how you have to kill the egregor. But, we're not even going to get into that. But it's just a basic thing to realize that you'll start feeling uncomfortable about your change. You'll start feeling like you should go back to your old way of being. You'll basically start the battle that goes on within, with the person basically beginning the process of nullifying and destroying what they've created. And this is why it says in the book, what has God wrought? And what that means is, what have we done as gods? What did we actually create? And if we start looking deep into, well, now we got to commit this being. This being even believes that it's going to die. This being believes that it has a limitation, whether it's called color. This being believes that even has a history that is not even serving it. You see what I mean? Because once you start taking on one thing, it's like a slippery slope. But they tell you you're green, and now you take on all of the essence of the green men. You just accepted a program, no matter how you look at it. And it's because you cannot live back in those times again to actually say what really went on there. So you won't have experience, you'll have knowledge. And knowledge is not wisdom. And this is the thing. So a person can't read a book and then put the book down and say, okay, I know about it. No. We need to get on the field so we can see if you really know about it.
Right.
Let's put you to the test.
Exactly.
And this is why the last thing for us to realize is that whole balance and harmony, which is balance is not a side, that we need so desperately to actually achieve, is our real way out. So we control, or in this case, and we control when that is activated. And it's about, at this time, arbitrating. You literally have a Cain and an Abel set up in your temples, the two sides of the head, with the left and the right brain who don't think alike, and each have their own way of seeing the reality, both creating themselves as eidolons. They're not even real. They're artificial. They're only a part of this little small wavelength we're calling life. And these two are actually keeping us in a back and forth process that does benefit, let's say, the one who's calling himself God right now, because the earth is its footstool, meaning that, hey, this is where I will travel on, because still all the conflicts that you're seeing here with self create combustion just like an engine. And then that creates force, which is power. And power is only brokered by time. Now, those laws that I'm just telling you are actually the laws of the power companies. Those are the laws of the companies that supply the lights that we turn on every single day. But then when you look at it on a metaphysical level, you're like, well, wait a minute then. That means that the as above level of power, like we'll call spiritual power, is actually our lights and our electricity. And if we're not even causing that phenomena, which is why I said you should work on becoming a sovereign and keep that as your focus, and it will happen. If you're not even causing that phenomenon, then someone else has power over you. You see? And it's as simple as that. And knowing that, like they say on G.I. Joe where they're fighting Cobra, knowing that is half the battle. Just knowing that alone, say, oh, okay, I see what time it is then. See, stop looking in the past to be like, oh man, if I had known, or I should. That same reflection is going to get a continuous reincarnation, and has always gotten a continuous incarnation going on. Now, here's the slick thing about the Matrix. There's a Roman version of you. There's the Egyptian. There's a Kemetan version. There's a Watusi version. Because all is self, but people don't get it. It's math, though. It's Ma'at. If we take a pyramid, that's a symbol of the Ma'at. You go back, your mother, your mother's mother, your mother's mother, your mother's mother, your mother's mother. Now, eventually, you're going to get all the way up into some Russian mothers, and they're going to have gotten up into your mother. There's going to be some, and it's always going to go back all the way into one being. That's a hermaphrodite. Androgynous. Now, we don't believe that that's possible. Why there's the hermaphrodites now? I'm not talking about fairy tales. I'm talking about what the lure says and where it all begins and where it all ends. And what we can do, because remember, if we're always willing to accept the good part, this is how we become the lamb meat, because we're supposed to be so good, right? So we always want to see the good part. We always want to see the good thing. And this is synonymous with why we only see one side of the moon, and why we only have one half of our language. English has 26 characters, which is really a 52 character language, like a 52 weeks in a year. So we only want the good part, but we don't want the bad part. And this keeps us ignorant, because we can't see then the bad part to realize, hey, these are both the same thing. Now, if a person's been running on binary forever, when they even think about that, are you saying that good is same as the bad? They start fusing up like, that's crazy, because you're saying like Mother Teresa is the same as a rapist. This doesn't make any sense. And because they're doing that, they're trying to philosophize something that is not something you can think about. You can't think whether you're good or bad. You've already made the judgment. You have to know there's no such thing. You're moving with purpose. Right. And this is what keeps things off your mind, because they say the idle mind is the devil's workshop. And it's because when you engage, and I can tell you how this happens neurologically, when you engage in division, you activate the R complex of the brain, which is literally a cog. This is like a cog in a clock that rolls the entire machination, which is your brain, backwards into the past. Because remember, the serpent's memory is memories. It's waves and sounds. It's basically the past. And so when we engage that part, we immediately start reflecting from there. And this is why anyone who's ever gotten to a deep meditation, the moment they start thinking, the deep meditation is over. Anyone who's come out of a
Yep.
dream and wants to and starts thinking, they start forgetting the dream. And this is because literally, physically, there's an engagement in the part of the brain that starts rewinding things and pulling it backwards and pulling it away, so you can't actually see any of the higher vibratory things. So what we've learned to do is actually how to engage the consciousness without using the reptilian or R complex. Now, we're not trying to get rid of it, because you're going to need it to operate in the matrix. It needs to know specific codes that allow you to get what you need up out of this thing and get to your sovereignty without a moment's delay. But that's what, I'm teaching a course now. It's called Ambassador Training. It's on this site that I've created called Spiritex. And what Spiritex is basically, I realized the biggest problem is we could talk about all we want, how this food was great to eat and how all these different things that could help a person, or a being, but if they didn't get any money, if they don't have money to buy all this expensive organics and all of that, then what's going to happen then? So then you're basically telling a person a solution to an issue that they can't even correct, because there's another much more greater issue. So why don't we focus on the greater issue? And that's why I said, if people can't figure out money, they can't figure out the ninth heaven. Forget about it. It's not that complex. We are making it complex because we believe that we're supposed to be impoverished. And this is a belief that comes directly out of the mindset of someone or something that is trying to demoralize you, to decrease worth. And then when we do that, we overvalue the reality. So we start spending our own current, which is the energy rolling through our body. And then we catch inflation, meaning that we don't understand exactly how valuable our time is anymore. Sometime our time now is worth $7 an hour or $6 an hour. You crazy. It's like, we're talking about a lot more than that. So that's the thing, is that when you can restore that with the person, because they don't connect. Notice how there's no connection between church and state still. There's no connection in the mind spiritually with the financial currency. A person doesn't realize that actually the energy that is coursing through their body does equate to how much money that they have in the world. Now, if you want to know again the riddle with why what they call evil people, bad people have a lot of money, and it's because they do what they're doing without any thoughts anymore about it. They don't even have any interruptions. Why a good person, should I do that? Do I really want to go there? I wonder if I should start this business. I want to help people, but are they going to think I'm all about the money? Is this distracting me? Am I supposed? So this is actually the mind of most quote unquote conscious people, that there's so many actual judgments going on. You will witness something is actually going on intentional to fuse conscious people's quote unquote conscious people's minds in an infinite loop, to where they only think, but they don't know. Now look in the text. Thoth, who is thought, created as a symbol the idea of thinking and language and all of that. And what it tells you is that was all summed up into one symbol where our ancient language is from. But it tells you when you bring out thought, now it's like you're opening Pandora's box, because the real adepts, the acolytes of the flux, they don't think. You can't. That's why the greatest basketball players are not thinking about when they shoot that shot, is it going in that hole? That you can't use thought to do that. It moves too slow. You need the zone. And the zone is Zen. Zen is focus. Focus is the point. The point is the peak. The peak is the pentacle, or the pinnacle, which is the tip of the star when it's upright. Meaning that you're right there. Ping, I'm here. I'm present. And then in that present, which is an anagram for the word serpent, then you can overcome them, because it moves fast. This happens so fast, all of this, what we're experiencing, that a person is kind of disorientated. But when that point where you confront yourself, because at the end of the day, the king and the pawn go back in the same box. This means that at the end, that same thing that has been the problem was you. This is where the whole judgment thing, it collapses on itself. The last point is whatever you've condensed as being your nemesis is you. So get out of the way of yourself. And that's all I have to tell people at times is, look, it's you. It's not any of these other things that you're actually exclaiming that it is. But I'll let you do that, because that is a product that of something that we've all been through. But there's a point in time where that has to actually come to a cease, and then you must go into action, because your sovereignty, like all that time we spent in the club, we needed that time actually. So we have to kind of get this in high gear and do some quantum, because see, quantum can put you right back to where you're supposed to be, because you'll be able to reverse your field. But the thing is that's what should not delay, and that's what I had to say about the whole thing.
Wow. Well, real quick, I know Brother Sean, you're gonna have some, because you in the amen quote section. Well, as I was amen. Okay, so now, brother, you kind of blew my wig back when you said, when we were talking about the third density, and you said, we're at the point of not like getting out of it, because you still have to know how to navigate in it. But we're at the point now where you will be operating simultaneously in dimensions. So meaning you would be in the third density, but also operating in the higher planes. And I just kind of got, really excited about that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, let me just explain it very simply.
Okay.
What it is that you can't think your way into this. You already know it. So what you need to do is deprogram the process of thinking, which is judgment. So let me explain this. You're going to have to do it. You live in a physical reality. You live in a matrix. It requires that you judge at every single moment. You have two eyes. So anything you see through two eyes, you're going to see dual right away. So it's literally hard-coded. Most of this duality, 2 hands, 2 feet, night, day. But that in-between point only lasts for a moment. Do you know the in-between point of night and day can only last for a short moment? So this is the space that you're looking to get into. So how this works is that you literally get to a point where you realize there was some stuff that you actually learned a long time ago that if you had took serious from that point, there was nothing else to really learn. You could just accept that that's happening and then go ahead and move, or as I say, it just is, and then go ahead and move right into your plan. And so every day I hear certain things and people hear certain things. And I even tell people certain things that if they were truly awake and they believe what I was saying right away, if not, at least when they got off the phone, there would be some kind of change. Like if I say, hey, you won the lottery, you just need to get downtown. When you hang up that phone, you see what I mean? It's going to be a different kind of whole thing going on. So this is how we test ourselves. I'm not saying anything is right or wrong about this. What I'm saying is that if you keep playing the game with yourself, that is how much you know, when you was there at the right time, what color you are, all these different things you can come up with that is going to govern if whether or not you quote unquote make it or not. You already made it. You're unmaking it. Yeah. This is basically coming at this in an entirely different way. That way you can outsmart the serpent, because what the serpent's going to ask you is, if this is your projection then, and you created all of this, why don't you know anything about it? This is the game. And this knowing that it's referring to is like book knowledge. Like, why don't you know about the speed of light? And why don't you have a doctor's degree? And why didn't they accept you in college? And why didn't your family treat you like they were supposed to? And why? It will keep coming with all of its own knowledge, which is its own way of actually gauging what's good and what's bad, because it has no reason. You see what I mean? Like it's a primitive state of consciousness, but it serves its purpose. Just like uranium is here on the planet, and then also cotton candy and every single thing in between. We get it. The architect is placing every single thing it needs to continuously build these physical realities. Now, about me though, because that's the difference between a sovereign and a servant. It's a thin line. Some approach the throne like, oh, most mighty and all powerful, I bow down before you. I approach the throne, it's me, myself, and you. I'm only asking for what is mine.
Exactly.
You see what I mean? This is my allotment. See, in the book, it tells you how that basically that they call it the supplanting. And this is in all ancient texts. This is Romulus and Remus. This is Cain and Abel. This is Esau and Jacob. Okay. And what this supplanting actually is about is when someone can steal your birthright. They can basically make you believe that you are the lower form or the serpent or the slave unit. Okay, now this is like computer programming, though, because all this illusionary thing is created off the same stuff that we're calling technology on steroids. Because what it happens is that this whole projection, again, as being the host and then the slave. So it's like basically one being sits in the position of being the oversoul. And then the other being sits in the position of being the dense life form that is commanded by the oversoul. Switch places. Where what must come up, what comes up must come down. This is all that's happening, is that we've been convinced to stay in the lower aspect of ourselves when we can really be riding the tip of the thing which we already know how to do. It's like when every time someone starts coming back in the day based on this ancient encrypted language, see, because they're going to keep creating stories that create history, but history is a program. So the moment, that's what the Mandela effect really is. The moment that the collective consciousness is used to begin to believe something, it starts solidifying in what we're calling the past. And since everybody's moving in that direction of death, this means that they'll eventually experience it and recollect it as to be true. And if you cannot realize that that's going on, because it's a simple sleight of hand, and that's how sorcerers work. When you study this, like I said, good is only 180 degrees turned on its head is evil. When you study this, you realize that there's two sides to this blade. That's why they say it's a coin. And the king has this coin, and there's two sides to this coin of this old two-face. So just like in the reality, everyone wants to play like they're the good one when they do in their own measure the badness in which they claim, and they claim to hate so much. I'm saying, hey, don't think about it. Move on. Get your mind free of all of that. Trying to do, move with volition. Get a plan, and how you do that is saying, okay, I need to become sovereign. Let's start off with a generator. Then let's start off with studying some of these things like graphene, studying some of these things that really go. The knowledge is now available. Look at industry. Industry is gonna basically show you where it's about to go. They don't even have enough inventors to create things. We don't have conscious people creating conscious materials that even emit an inkling most of the time of what we're talking about here, but we will. And actually there is some that are already leaking out, but someone's got to actually start it, and that one can be condensed in everyone, because at the end of this, and I'll just explain. So why? Because people say, well, why is all this going on? And then if you're saying that this realm was actually constructed by an architect who's also known as the angel, why did it construct it? Because it was attempting to perform alchemy. And in its alchemy, what it's doing is putting every single living being here under pressure, or in the crucible. That's what the crucifixion is. When you're crossed between the four elements. So now you're quadary. It's like you're back on a dual number again with the four elements. So what happens is when a person's strung across the four elements, or the wheel, in this process, through their judgments, listen to what I'm saying, through their judgments, they began to create things that don't have those same judgments. And let me give you the example. When generally, if there's, let's say, homosexual parents, gay or lesbian parents, brother, sister, whatever, when a child is produced, as that child grows up in that environment, it will be less prone to thinking of ideas like that's even wrong. So that judgment is removed. It even works on small things like color, that when the next being comes in the world, they no longer have, like if a lady is all her life in this room and living in this room and the baby is there with her, and the lady says, I hate this color, I hate this color. This baby is actually going to come out not hating that color. It's the same thing with roaches. The roaches eat the poison, and then when the babies come out, they're immune to the poison. You get it? So every single being is being used as an alchemical vessel within themselves to produce eventually what would be an apex human. Now, apex human would probably be something like, well, I won't give any visuals, just understanding that it's a being with no judgment at all. They'll attempt to accomplish that on the physical plane. They believe that all this going crazy and then going back church again is a part of the whole process, because it's wrenching people from one thing to another, so that there are tons of experiences going on. And then there's a continuous distillation within each human being when they pass from the planet, and they still leave their creations, to where their creations actually don't have the same judgments that they do. So they're expecting, and this is the great work, they're expecting it to distill within one being. And that being, let me explain this, that being will then be extracted, just like they talk about in the alchemical procedure. Once they get to the panacea, they then need to extract it. So this is almost like a UFO visitation. So this being then is extracted, and within all the beings that lived, according to their theories, they'll all be inside of that one being, because it won't have the same limitation. And so because they're saying the greatest mind will always encapsulate other minds. And this is why I say, get out the mind. There's only keys and codes here. Like, I'm telling you how their system works, not so you could be daunted by it or think you're going to go and try to control it. I'm telling you how it works, so that you can realize, if this is not like floating your boat right now, literally,
Right.
and you're ready to move on to, when it's above the wave. See, because we're now in the slag now. That's the vibration, and the density is so dense. But this is also necessary if you want to understand the purpose. If the earth was vibrating at even twice the frequency that is vibrating now, no life forms could live here as we know them in physicality. It would shake them all off. Earth is slow, like a mother, warmth, because low vibratory frequency base, negative, because those smaller life forms that just now getting their sea legs need to stand up and then realize how it starts seeing like what's happening, get their vision back. That's what the Horus is to get your vision. You're blinded right now with this dualistic vision. You're cross-eyed. And it's like, and it's sucking all of our time. And that's how we know we're in a gaze with this thing. It's like standing in a gaze with a cobra. You're just locked on with this thing and this dualistic reality. And we're not seeing, actually, like when you take some ayahuasca or you take some DMT, the whole thing turns into it. Your computer, your floor, your TV, the tree, everything turns into it, because you're always locked in a gaze with this thing. And I don't, it's an adventure though. Like, remember, this is not hocus pocus or mysticism. Like I said, let's put a mist all around it so you can't see what's going on. This is an adventure. And if you remember yourself as a child, which is the closest that you will ever remember yourself to being at the peak or at the point, you were an explorer. And tell me you weren't. You were an explorer. Everything, even if it was just walking up the street, was an adventure. You can watch kids do it now. They'll take a small space in a room in a corner and start creating an entire world right there. So we have the proof. So I don't need to know somebody else's knowledge and all of that kind of stuff. I just need to know myself, because that's belief. They write all the books, but they don't even know the answers according to them themselves. So that's in the belief realm. And see, the whole realm then is full of the belief. And you can pull even the word apart about understanding the lies of light. So what happens is now we're moving into this whole other field. At least some of us are. And we're shining like beacons to others. And it's radiating through another level. Like, this is just a conversation. The true essence you can gather. And out just so you understand, it's all about how open you are. You can gather every single thing I know when I say only one word. You can literally extract all my knowledge from that one tone and vibration if you was tuned in. And so too, if someone can do it to me, I could do it to them. When I'm listening to some professor or whatever talking on YouTube about something that he doesn't even really know what he knows, because he's thinking. That explains why when you get these people with 15, 20, 30 years a degree under the belt, you're like, and why these folks couldn't figure out what is happening here?
Right.
It's because they're compartmentalized. That's literally the term. They probably stick them right in the R complex. They get the hierarchical system going on, the emulation of my pyramidal system that they have with their boss and all the rest of the beings that are above them. And then they go into working like this slave in their own mind and harnessing in this lab coat in this white area their brightest ideas. And then that is then taken and then shaped and formed in fashion. And a person told, okay, great, thanks for that. Okay, well, we're going to get away with that project right now. We're going to put that away. We need you to work on something else. And this is why. And look, all you have to do, you don't need to believe the past anymore. Just believe the time that you've been alive. And if you start just doing that alone, it is not disempowering. It is empowering, because you will know what you've experienced and then act accordingly. See, because if you go back 2,000, 3,000 years and you're adding all that in with where you're at now, you can come out with the wrong balance. You're taking energy from another space and trying to calculate where you are. Just calculate where you are by the space that you've been in and what's happened to you here to make your move. When you do that, you'll find that move should be towards sovereignty. When you put it in your mind, it will sit in your mind as a point of focus, like a bow and an arrow. It will be pointed in the right direction. So that way, when you're dealing with the same stuff you're going to have to deal with tomorrow, it's not going to feel the same, because you're going to move with a purpose. You're going to be like, you know what? This is how you use negative and turn into positive. You say, this is exactly why I'm going to become a sovereign. This is exactly why I need to become a sovereign. Why am I dealing with this? You see? So that's what I do. Every time I deal with something that I don't like to deal with, it only speeds me. Oh, I got to get to become a sovereign right now, because I'm going to keep dealing with this and worse. And remember, I'm on like the top layer right now. I'm on the layer cake at this point as far as when I'm gleaming from the reality, but it's still because of my own lack of connection. See, think about it. And this is what a lot of people won't say. You got to operate every single day in the dualistic mainframe, even by using language.
That's right.
So you have to develop a really unique technique to actually be in both spaces at the same time, being in that all-powering, I already did this. That's a person walking with confidence, right? And then at the same time, have to step outside and then stick your thumb out to get a ride somewhere or whatever. It's a process here, right? It would be even funnier as like some kind of commercial, right? But see, I'm telling you, taking the small opportunities first and not trying to look for the big fish all the time is the sure way to already start firing them laser beams through, because you're not working on this level. You're just carrying it out, so that way you make the efforts that's going to cause it to happen on an entirely different mainframe. You're just taking back your ship. This is why there's so many stories about these shipwrecked ships. They went against the current and then found themselves off in somebody else's planetary sphere at the wrong place in the wrong time, and now they're on the rocks. And then, look, this sounds like the story of some racial groups. And now they got to get a galactic tow truck to come through here and to put them back on course. And that's all I'm doing. And I'm doing that by putting myself back on course, not by going and reading some knowledge and then bringing it back. All the times of us gathering just knowledge from some external source and then coming to this microphone and vainly reciting, that never even started when I was even beginning this, because you should have Gnosticism at a certain point, because there's a frequency moving around 3 or 4 in the morning that will tell you everything you need to know if you're listening. And that's called, and she was even personified as wisdom. So but we have to keep moving up this ladder. Like they said, behold, I saw the ladder going up and down, and they were descending and ascending. Who is they? Us. Get back to the top of the ladder. And that's all it is. And then this space, because don't expect for just poof, the reality be gone and this hocus pocus. No, it will be, you will watch yourself progressively from this environment, Earth Prime, going through your process of finally seeing your fulfillment, not happiness, fulfillment, where you can now feel like you got the t-shirt. I don't need to be coming back here. It ain't because I don't need to redeem myself with Kiera and Michael and all the rest of them. All of these different things that we have accumulated within this monkey/reptilian mind, we can have that. They can have that back. Hey, take the mind, take the memories. I'm going into the experience. So this is what we're talking about. And we begin that process now. This is not something that we wait for, because we train our mind. So that way, when you glide up out of this, it won't be a real struggle. And that's why I say, the elements do help a lot. The breathing helps a lot, because it starts letting you become familiar with that space that actually is what accompanies what occurs when you die, oxygenating yourself properly. That's why I put the whole body breathing videos up, oxygenating yourself 15 minutes, only 15 minutes before you're going to bed. Entirely different dream space, entirely different. Just making those efforts and just basically being the controller of your own realm. And that's all that we're talking about here. You're just putting yourself back into the driver's seat. So you know what? I got this from here. I can do. You know how some people say, I can do better than this. Well, go ahead then. And that's all we're talking about. Get out of the judgments, the good and the bad that oscillates time, and then get right into the now and the present and the balance. Keep your focus on sovereignty, and then get ready to see the greatest part of yourself, because it's already there.
Wow. All right, Brother Sean. I know. You go ahead on.
Y'all brothers supposed to have something for me. Y'all got to come in now. I mean, we got about, I guess, it's 8. I guess we got about, I don't know, about 30 more minutes. I'm not sure, but, Yeah,
because then we're going to open it up to the family, too, to give them an opportunity. So go ahead on, Brother Sean. I don't want to be selfish.
Yeah, I find it interesting, the term sovereignty, because in a quote-unquote conscious community, or in the Moorish community, they seem to frown on that word sovereign. They seem to associate that with quote-unquote Caucasians, and saying that it's a quote-unquote white movement. And
well, let me demystify some things about the language. Just really briefly, just before we move on, just because I can stay with the point or the topic.
Okay.
All the words are bad. Okay? What we did was, that's what the code of the matrix was, is that I took apart all the words, and I show how all the words, related to time, let's say week. So this means having no energy. Days, this means confused. Men, meaning small. So all of these different units of power actually had negative connotations when you just looked at either the word as it is, or you began to pull it apart, or you began to put a letter and other letters in front of it. So I got in the beginning, though, on this whole process of attempting to eliminate certain words. And this started making it more complex to communicate with people, but I was getting by. But what I started realizing when I start seeing deeper things that were taking apart languages, because when I discovered the code in the language, after I fully cracked the code, I wanted to know, did the code actually exist in other languages? And I found out actually, yes, that every single language, and actually some even more intrinsic, like Hebrew, for instance, when you drop it all down on itself, it makes a Star of David. So the entire, or a Megan star, as they call it. So the entire language is actually encased in one symbol. English also has a symbol that it's encased in. But I realized that, especially with English, the 26 letters that we were given, this A to Z, is actually what moves in the direction of where the clock is moving, which is actually the direction of decay. While the other 26 letters actually moves in the opposite direction. It moves in the direction of regeneration. So, and this is called a cabal, because the word cabal comes from the root a cable, meaning that the first point must connect to the last. So what I started realizing is, if we're going to play the game with the words, this actually gives a person this tangent that they sometimes jump on. And I'm in no way saying it's you, but you've met people like this. And I've met people and even been the person at a certain point of, hey, brother, wait, let me stop with exactly what you're saying. But that word that you're using, because emancipation is supposed to be another word that's like that. But it's all the words. And this is how I found out also that It's even deeper than I was able to crack on the surface of the code. That when you look into Arabic, actually across all the languages from the Hieratic and Demotic script, you actually find this scenario where like the V is the B and the W and the M. And then you start finding basically that many of these letters, when you cross them into other languages, they're actually the same letter. But there's a way to do that with every single letter, proving that every single letter is actually one letter, really. Now, how does that get by in reality? It's because we created so many divisions by creating words that we even create this impossibility. Even our existence in time is impossible. So this is the place that the impossible happens. This is where the paradox is. So, just to demystify again the words that are being used, sovereignty to me is the one that everyone is. Sovereignty is one that everyone is familiar with, and it's also the one that the most programming has been done around for a person to say, "Oh, okay, I know what that is," unless they've had a bad experience from some of these also so-called conscious people running around saying that they're going to give people that ability, and then taking people's money all the way to the point where now the word is now become synonymous with being something negative in the person's mind. But either way, negative or positive, I'm just using the word to say, get yourself independent, get yourself your power, your force. And all those words, again, we could pull them apart, but this is, ultimately what I mean. And again, it's just a word that I find that people are very familiar with when being used.
Oh, I understand, brother. I'm just getting that out there for the listeners who don't understand, because we got quite a few who follow the script to the letter.
For sure. And
the script to the letter.
No doubt.
Hey, cuz. Hey.
Go ahead, Brother Wendell.
I've been telling y'all how important these words are. You got to look into this thing. It'll take you on a whole nother ride that you ain't been on before. I appreciate you bringing that out there like that, bro.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, what it does is it gives you the entire story, because the language is the code, right? And so you can't just switch the code like that. You got to keep some of the old code. You basically can't change language overnight, is what I'm saying. So inside of the languages, there's a story being told. And then when you know about the certain meanings of certain words, like the S is always a symbol of the snake. And, and it even stands upright like that. And then when you go all the way back to the ancient star language, it actually connects to that constellation. So, there's this. So this is not so, I would say it's not so mystical that we can't actually go and pull raw data about what exactly we're in, because to be quite frank, our ancestors knew the ins and out of this entire thing. So that means that we know, because we are our ancestors.
Right.
Yeah. But see, if you get an understanding of this word game, that's what I call it, the word game. You can see how it builds on itself. Now, how do we want to get back to where we're supposed to be? You got to learn how this thing is built so you can go back. You have to.
Exactly. That's the funny statement. They say you learn, now you must unlearn.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like to say that.
It's called deconstruction.
Yeah.
see, they came with this thing called reconstruction when we're actually supposed to be deconstructed.
That's the way to look at it. Okay, sis, go ahead.
I would like to say that they deliberately have educated all of us to be the slave, because they use that word, I would say religiously, to indoctrinate our people. And you were saying that the overseer, there has to be an overseer and the slave. And what they programmed us to do is to lose our powers by using the education of where we came from, instead of what purportedly where we came from, instead of where we need to be. And our people, our children especially, have internalized all the words of what they purportedly was before. And we need to undo those things. And it's a good thing that you're working on trying to undo those things and give our people and our children the idea that they can be better than the words that are spoken to them every day. They learn it in school, or somebody say, well, I was, or you were a slave, or you were this, or you were that. And get rid of that dynamics and start allowing them to create a new future for themselves.
I mean, I'm with you, sister. It really says itself for what it is when they say in the ancient text, if it can be named, it can be controlled. And then the anagram for the word name, of course, is amen, which means hidden. So it means that right away, the person then is cloaked by the name that is given to them, which is supposed to be the expression of who they are, but it cannot fulfill that. And then so the casting of the mold begins, and this is actually a process of the machination itself, the how you form a solid idea around what the person believes that they are, so that they cannot be limitless anymore. How they create boundaries and regulations for themselves that end up hindering and hedging in their being. Versus, and we have a clear sight of what it's like to not do that when we watch children. And so if we can imagine we move like children, but with wisdom, now we're talking. It's like, so these are the things that, as long as we're in a world where there is still there's an opposition, because I know for sure what happens is you get to a point to where you wax so strong, you literally create a field or almost like a repulsion bubble around you, that if something is not harmonized or doesn't resonate, you have to make a very strong effort to pull it into your field. And, this is why, when somebody says you're trying too hard or something, and you're trying to really make something work and it's just not happening, it's just, you will get it to work, but there is some resistance there of putting it into your field. And so this is a big key thing, as you were saying, is instead of looking back at what is supposedly there, looking into what is supposed to be. And that is the biggest switch in the directions of our consciousness. And that's one of the main things that, I've discovered a lot of things on this path, some maxims, but the main one now I'm realizing is the knowing. And that takes some time because you can't think your way into the knowing. It's just a process that you go through with yourself when you're ready to accept yourself. And then begin to accept this mantle of power that comes with being you. And that's why, because right now we have all these regulators, we have all these capacitors, we have all of these different interruptions in our energy stream. And that's exactly how electronic devices set up. There's all these different things breaking down the energy before it gets so we can run through this entire system. We can sit at the peak of our consciousness. Now, also, let's talk about, though, how we can apply some of this to the youngsters and those making moves now. I have some friends that, one of them, Lemuel LaRoche, who's working with chess and community, who's working with inner city youth and teaching them how chess relates to what goes on in life. And this is a massive humanitarian effort. He even just recently came back from Ethiopia after taking the kids there to play chess with the Ethiopian children. And what I started noticing for sure is that this bridge that we have is really calling on us to utilize even some of these technologies to actually begin to use that as a throughput to reach children. Like, if you notice how Apple, let me just give a quick example. Apple didn't come out with a VR device because they realized that if they went the other way, which is called augmented reality or AR, then they would potentially put the largest platform on the world because all the people who have the Apple and the iPads and the i whatever. So what I'm saying is that you can, with one fell swoop, put this back in balance. Now, this is not imbalance. This is what happens with good and evil, right? Or light and dark, is that it's never in balance. Right. So if we're looking for it to actually come in balance, the only thing it can get is closer to the center, right? So now it's actually swinging over heavy to one end. It's like when something's lopsided, right? So surely we could give it a nudge back into the direction that it's supposed to go in while we're heading that way ourselves. And that's kind of what it really is. It's about, all of that power that's pinned up, because when there's a lot of negativity, so too there's positivity. But if there's not that many people who know how to draw from positive force, listen to what I'm saying. This is not neutral. I'm talking about positive. Positive is a force that's so strong. It's like putting your hand on an outlet. It doesn't work like the negative force does, which works on a more subtle or subconscious realm. Power or positivity works on the physical reality, but it is also electrifying. This is why if you check out Dynamo Jack, the Qigong master from the urban Java, just type in Dynamo Jack in YouTube and check him out. And you'll see it's not a hoax. Human beings have a power that comes from their hands that one can freeze and the other one can set things on fire. So that state can't be reached unless you get the duality out of your mind. And he explains it in the video. Now, I just gave you a whole hour, 2 hours worth of another way of explaining it. But he just says that right at the apex of yourself, which is right around your belly button area, the two energies meet there in the Dantain. And what he does, which he accomplished through meditation, what he says, is that he forces the energies to come together. And what this does is it creates a surge of power and energy. That's exactly how a battery works. You force the positive and negative poles to come together, which creates a pressure and a force. There's power. So since we literally have the external formula for power, we only need to apply that same formula internally. And that's why I say that's where the work comes in, because now when you look at yourself and it's like, well, how long does it take before we're already jumping back on somebody else and wasting our time giving our energy to that Eidolon? Now, here's another thing that you should understand about the Eidolon. It needs positive and negative energy, just like we need positive and negative energy in these bodies. The Eidolon needs positive and negative. This is why the media loves the hate. Trump is becoming an extremely large Eidolon on the astral plane right now. And it's because it has the hate, and then it has these fanatics. But so does Islam. Right. So does Islam. So those are the egregors, and that's how they work. So this is also why when that crosses over to industry's like, well, we need some dish. We need something. They say that he did bad. Let him go to jail. Yeah. And then people say, well, how could he go to jail? They Google the name. Oh, young Fetty Wap, whatever. He's going to jail. And then album sales go up. Everything goes up because it's just about sending energy down a current. And as strong as that energy could be, if there's a collector on the end. See, this thing now that we're dealing with, because all the stuff I'm explaining to you has already been for those who are in the know. Now what you have is this is all like intentional. They literally use all of their characters that they have in their play, which is their as below stars, the fallen stars. Mm-hmm. That's why they put their little fallen star on Hollywood. You're still living in a realm. And this is why I said, this is how you know where you're at. They reward people for screwing up other people's minds. The guy from Freddy Krueger and all that, he got a star down there. They gave him an inverted pentagram. You see what I mean? So this is, this, and then look, and you're here. This is why I say you got to, get to your own peak, because, meanwhile, whatever your story is, forget it for a moment and look, this is what they're doing here. This is the only reason that you need to why you will want to come back to in advancing yourself in this. And like I said, it's available now.
Good.
Well, another thing I want to put, let's go to the other extreme of the spectrum, death. Death. They program you to die. They program you with the medicines they advertise on TV, the age, you're old, you're feeble, you're going to get there. Even when you go into surgery, the doctor says, I'm going to send you someplace. And you go where they send you. because they put those thoughts in your mind. But we can overcome the negative impulses of our cells dying if we don't listen to the programming that they are saying, at this age you do this, in this age you do this, in this age you do that, and of course you die. And I think that we should, as older people and younger people, remember that life and death is in the power of the tongue, and you do not let those people speak that negativeness into your cells. Because I had surgery and the guy overdosed me, but I came back because I refused to go where he sent me.
I remember that too, sis. And, it's in family. If you have a question for Brother Sevan, you want to put something on it, press *1 to get in the queue. Sis, it's interesting that you talk about not allowing other beings to put things on you, and to me, put the spells on you or follow the program that the quote gods have set up or instituting. To me, that's all about. We should be at the point now, as Brother Sevan was talking about, in the time frame of now, being in the moment, you're writing your own program or code.
Right. That's right.
So,
not listen to what they have to tell you you're going to do at this age or at this time. And you, because of this genetics, you're going to do this, and you're going to do that, you're going to do that. That's crazy.
Right, because what it is that
Right.
you would basically be nullifying the power of their egregor. And to just explain this very simply, all the concepts that we've created in our mind, even the sun and the moon, has concentrated itself in our thoughts. You can actually get to the point to where you can remove even those. So all of the phenomena of what those entities or energies would have an effect in doing will not have an effect. So it's like, but there's levels to this. It's like, this is not the, you ain't going to jump right from there, right from the beginning. I mean, maybe, anything's possible,
Right.
But think about it. There's still the whole process of just realizing energies. There's still the whole process of realizing your diet and how your diet connects into your energetic field. There's still the whole process of realizing, the emotional aspects of this with, your own vampirism sometimes to yourself, and the whole emo and the emotional roller coaster, and what goes up must come down all the time with every scenario that you enter, redundancies, past healings. There's all these different things that must be addressed, but it's easier to address when you have your pinnacle or your beacon out there already and so you could stay focused on it, because when you're going through all of those processes, especially if you're going through them rapidly, you need to stay grounded. You need to understand, what am I doing? And also others around you need to understand that too, because, it's very important to state at times, what direction things are going in. You put it in old black and white again. The pen is more powerful than the sword. Put your hand down there on that paper and write your intentions of this sovereignty and whatever you want to call it. And the reason is because it just makes sense from so many levels. Like, we can't be sitting. This is also why when our elders, when we're having our elders, great grandmother, grandmother, whatever, there's nobody that even has enough cash to even take care of grandma these days. I mean, it's getting crazy. We couldn't build these bridges back if we wanted to, so we make these excuses. Well, it's getting along, and we just say all these different things. But for a being that can do anything, I just only encourage everyone, just like I encourage myself, to, hey, you know what? All of this stuff that even this far, this is 7 years, we've created social networks, we've made hundreds of videos, we've done TV, I've done festivals and all these different things. Now we're going and inventing a water programming device. There's a social network. There's, I could keep going on. We're now employing people. So all of those things, I accomplish about 85 to 90%, and I'm being modest, of that just right here from where I'm at and what I'm doing. There's not like a whole army back here, because you'll notice there's a trend that when you're starting something And it's not like everything else. Oh, don't look for finding that many people who are on that same vibration, because for them, it's like swimming upriver. So that's where a part of the sovereignty comes in, is because you can really begin to educate yourself on only what's important. Like when I need to learn something, I can just go and write to this thing and hit a couple words. And if I'm willing, I can actually learn it if it's important to me. So what I'm just saying is that that's where our time should be spent. You see, because if we're still looking for this genie in the bottle, like this one thing you're going to do, this one supplement I'm going to buy, and then that's just going to change everything. It's about now becoming you again and getting on that process of how that works, to start thinking for yourself again. You're originally an inventor, creator. You have tons of ideas. This is the day of the desktop. You can really start creating your own products and all sorts of stuff. You have your holistic side at Etsy. If you're making some soaps and stuff like that, you can supplement your income, start becoming an entrepreneur right away, a conscious entrepreneur. There's an entire market. You can ride the circuit, which is all the conscious festivals, lightning in the bottle. You can go get booths there. Anything that you create, these people are coming from all over the world. They want to see, they have the money, you know, it's there. But if we again have this interruption in front of us, that's what we're moving out the way. Like this is where we're at right now. So I know we're probably at that key point in the hour. I'm not sure, but I do want to, if there is time, you know, somebody does have questions, I can definitely answer those questions. But I guess at this point, I've given enough about, you know, what needs to go on.
Yes, you have. So press *1 family, or I'm going to, you know, give Brother Sevan back his time. But real quick, thank you for bringing up that point of each one of us, you know, basically finding your own passion, which really equals your purpose, which when you find your passion and purpose, you really find your sovereignty.
Yes.
And that's how you really know that you have your passion and your purpose. And I was, I think last week, I was talking to the family kind of in a different light, but I was noticing how I could feel the vibration of the spirit of the entrepreneurship among other folks. And you just even look at it from the big corporate perspective. I take Hollywood. Let's just take Hollywood, for example, because I think that's the example that I use. We are now at the point where even Hollywood itself it's not even viable. It's not even the end thing. You see like the Netflix, you see the Amazons, you see all of these other little one-offs that you never would have dreamed or even had a concept, or you see people putting their own work, you know, online themselves with very little capital. So they are not tapping into these old archaic systems that tie them to someone else's program that forces them to be slaves. I'm seeing these other beings standing up their own thing to create their own sovereignty. And I even look at even me doing what I'm doing myself. It's just something that I created, you know. So thank you for bringing that out to the family, that, you know, that's just something that each individual person can do and should be doing.
Exactly. And it has also nothing to do, well, I'll just say it like this, all this paperwork and all these kind of things, like we want to see this on a spiritual level, and then we want to see it on the physical, and then all those other levels, they just got no choice but to bow down anyway. And that's really how we work, and that's how it's done.
Absolutely.
Oh,
So I'm sorry. Go ahead on, Brother Sean.
Also, the part when you were saying about thinking and it setting the cogs off in your mind and taking you back at the time instead of just being. That brings to me the concept, the program of the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Everybody want to keep jumping down into the rabbit hole and chasing information.
Yep.
which we know that there's tons of information out here that can totally keep you away from self. And everybody keep jumping in the rabbit hole, and I keep trying to tell people the thing to do is to stay out of the rabbit hole.
Exactly.
You're not in it, well, put yourself in the rabbit hole. And then you got to try and figure your way out, and it comes down to unlearning all that you learned in order to become what you already were.
Very
Exactly.
well said.
That's it right there.
Brother Wendell, you have anything you want to put on it for Brother Sevan? I want to give him back some of his time. The family being shot tonight, so that's on you all.
Yeah. I'm just glad that brother confirmed, my thought process. Because I'm sitting here processing as he's speaking and etching that in my little brain. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I get you, brother. Sis, did you have any thing or last words for Brother Sevan?
Thank you so much, Brother Sevan. I really, really, really love what you say. You say it so eloquently and so clearly that we can overstand and understand all of this, when you break it down for us. And I appreciate you for doing that.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It's my pleasure.
Well, brother, before you leave us, before I let you go, I do, if you don't mind, if you can just tell us about some of your upcoming classes that are coming up, and as well as other things that you have in the works that you're bringing forth to the public.
Most certainly. Primarily what we're working on now is we're working on this karma-free wealth or open source wealth, where we basically just want to demystify this whole thing with money. Because if everyone wasn't crabbing with each other all the time in these industries, then money actually wouldn't be a problem. Have you ever noticed when you go to a job, it's like they make it intentional to either make it hard on you there, make sure you can't get to the next level of the job. You got someone thinking you're going to take their job, so they don't want even to give you any pointers of how things work. And this is pretty much the environment. So what we're working on now is that we understand that there's so many avenues available now that are just on the internet, which actually untether you from any kind of desk, that if we already demystified this secret behind marketing and learning the trends like minimalism and all of these different things that come across that basically equate to a person, hey, let me see what they have, and hey, let me check out what they're doing. And also we're giving people the wherewithal to begin to represent, well, this has been going on for 4 years, but right now they can represent products that are vividly available to assist people on different levels. And then they receive not only commissions for that, they also can be a part of this new thing that we're doing, which is we're launching this huge project of a water programming device called Phi Aqua right now. And this is going to be revolutionary, but it's on so many levels. Not only that we can program water with this technology that we have, but we're also giving people the opportunity to represent the device and make their way to sovereignty off the wave that we're already going to cause, because we're going to give all the materials away. We're going to, we're doing this is what I'm saying. And this is something that we're already doing now we have, I think it's something like 40 products on our store, from Tibetan medicine to cell salts. Like, these are all areas, like, it gets you right to whatever is the situation to get you your relief. And so that's what's going on. So not only do we have that there for people who are experiencing something and need some solutions, we also have it so that people could fix their financial situation with it. And then now what we're doing is we're enhancing that we have training going on right now. And then we also have this product that's coming that everyone's going to want. And this is going to allow you to basically go into doors that would maybe be shut edgewise. So there's that. With the university, there's semester 3 that's looming in the distance. Like, everyone wants me to nail down a date. It is going to be this year. But basically what it is that we're on semester 2, because many people told me that, hey, if you could condense this in subjects, what would that be like? And so that's where the Innerversity was born, is me just sitting down and taking the time to go through an actual curriculum, and then developing even manuals to explain these topics in different kind of formats. But basically to get you to, in all areas, like celestial mechanics, like if you want to understand how you can orientate yourself with the stars properly, internal cleansing, what is the real process for cleansing the body, what's really going on there, what are you eating, current and currency, how does your money actually connect with the energetic potential that's going on in your body, and also what's going on in your environment, the conflicts that you're having when you start leaking energy. So we cover all these topics, or I cover all these topics step by step, and that's what the Innerversity is. And so right now that's what's going on. That's more than enough. But there's obviously Secret Energy as a website. People can check that out. It is open source spirituality, so it has a lot of resources in there for you to check out if you want to know more about this. And but right now, again, knowing is a feeling more so than it is something that you have to do. So just that feeling of, restoring yourself and knowing, okay, you know what, I got what I need. I heard what I need to hear. You don't got to tell me twice.
Right.
Like I remember all these times where, there's a point where you get it. You're like, all right, I see how you are. I can't take you for granted anymore. This is how I look at the reality.
Right.
It's like, I can't keep playing these games with myself. I'm grown now. 8 years ago, it seemed like a whole different thing from what was going on right now, 8 years. So what's this other next 8 years going to actually look like? And and then there's so much demystification. It gets to the point where when somebody says, can you make it easy? Well, that all depends on what you call hard. Because if we weren't so busy always acting like this is so difficult, like this knowledge that we're talking about, it would be easy to us because we already know it. And like even things like even the rabbit hole being demystified, like the movements of the planet Venus, the 5 and the 8s, all of those different things actually connect with explaining to a person the fertility symbol is the rabbit, the Easter point. And then when Easter comes around, you'll notice that the Venus planet sits right on the horizon like it's the sun and rises in the same place that the sun rises. And then during that time, everything is fertile. So you look outside, you look at the grass, everything is acting like it's ready to mate with something. And then also you yourself start feeling like the urge, like you have more energy. And that's that time to where you do your manifesting and creating. Because when you create at that point right there, it will be the strongest. And then as it goes throughout the year, it rolls into these other cycles, which give it all the layers. So this is the great Cosmo Crater. It's basically a clock that's inside of the sky encoded in stars that our ancestors knew and formed their language on it. So they were always manifesting. Now we have somewhat of a virus in the system that's diverting the power and the energy behind our words or our worlds. And the only thing that we have to do is begin to return back or forward, as I call it, to our intonation, means what's going on, how loud are you thinking, get that actually in control, and then start really going into your true potential. And the step-by-step to that, there's free recordings. The Innerversity has a premium to it. Ambassador training has a premium to it, because when you give things for free, sometimes people don't think it has a value. But 90-something% of all of our content is still free. So if you want to ride your way all the way to where you need to go, you can do that on one of the last recent recordings on SoundCloud. And so this is really about us making this make sense. So the sense part of this also is if people need assistance on the financial side, you can check out spirittext.com and you can apply there. Everyone is accepted. And then you can just get the knowledge and the materials. You could do this by posting links on your social media, etc. Or you could just look at it, learn all the knowledge. If you want to know about good design to take your own business to the next level, like when you create these clunky looking websites that got the old buttons and you think you really done something and you're wondering why nobody has come to it, is because there. And then also how simple this is now. Don't be looking at this new site be like, oh, that's so complex. Man, what they did is they made it as simple as possible so they could sell it to as many people as possible. Why? Because complex things, there's only a few people that go for that kind of stuff, right? So everything that has ever been your problem, they are capitalizing off of creating solutions for those problems, because that same process is our uniqueness. All of the problems we're experiencing in the world is because the unique people don't know who they are. So you see how the knowledge just rolls right on itself. That's how it proves itself. It doesn't need to get someone to bear witness. It doesn't need all of that. It can roll on its own like a wheel if it's perfect. And in the moment that something is said that's a lie or not true, it doesn't fit in with the blueprint. So this is how we show people in this lesson that you can use your body as the immediate map. And then you could start progressing from there and realizing the rest of the spheres around you and how they're all connected. So, so this is what it is. It's broken down completely. So that way it could be, so you can unlearn the foolishness, which is a lot going on. You can get closer to because there's a fake matrix. That's the world that everyone is living in now with this digital electronics. There's the real matrix, which is nature. If you learn the real matrix code, which is nature's code, then you can learn how the code to the body. And then once you learn the code to the body, then you can unlock, because the body is like a hermetically sealed vessel. Then you can unlock it, and then the what we would call the spirit flies free. But the interesting part is it doesn't fly free because all of a sudden there was a key turn and the body let it out. It's because it realized that it could. And had already been free. So even concepts like death is experiments of doing the impossible. How you going to convince an immortal being it can die? Let's see this. It's like, man, y'all keep setting new bars for yourself. Death is people are more afraid of life than they are death, Rhonda. If these people had gotten on a bad path and thought it wasn't going to end for some reason, look out. They need death in their lives until they're taught what life truly is. And that's the process of the teachers and the elders. The planet is a huge elder within itself. Just coming like, well, I'm not coming without no spankings, though. You're going to pay for these lessons. And that's kind of like this emulated in the college tuition. It's like, it's emulated, though, in our life. When we make mistakes, we pay. Right? So when we know that, maybe we can work more to learn from others' mistakes, right? And then save ourselves the energy and get ready to flow with that. So that's all we're talking about. Store your energy, stop leaking, stay out of the dualistic point, get creative, find your uniqueness, because that's what's needed in the world that's missing. So that means that's how you'll make your way in this world. There's no limits to it, to what you can do. All you need to do is discover it for yourself. And I think that's the clearest way to it. And then everything else the person is going to have to do, or the being is going to have to do.
Wow. Well, with that said, Brother Sevan, again, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure as always. Family, you can check him out at secretenergy.com. And then also for the class and for that site, trust me, it has a wealth of information. As he said, for free. I have pulled several things off of that site from a literature book perspective. So that's secretenergy.com. If you want to check out some of the classes in his university, that is university.secretenergy.com. But you can also get to University from secretenergy.com. So I look forward to your projects, brother. I am going to check a few out myself. You sparked my interest on quite a few. So I want to thank you again for your time, and I want to thank you for all that you do. It's truly appreciated.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Wholeness. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to coming forward with y'all soon.
Okay, absolutely. Okay. Thank you, brother. Peace and love.
Okay, Wholeness.